Okay. So my name is Dr. Cohen. I see many familiar names who are here today. I am one of the directors of curriculum here in Union. I also oversee, I'm a supervisor of math, so I oversee the math department in grades 6 through 12. And I'm joined today by Ms. Whitford. Ms. Lauren Whitford is the math instructional coach, and she primarily works at the middle school level, so she's here with me today. Ms. Whitford, do you want to say anything or just wave and smile?
Hi.
Okay, there she is. Um, and so thank you so much for being here today. Part of the reason that we are having this meeting is it's part of our You Learn series. And there was or is still a researcher by the name of John Hattie. And John Hattie conducted research on variables that affect student learning. And he looked at over hundreds and hundreds of variables to see what kind of effect they have on student growth and student learning. And he further looked at whether they were positive and how positive, or whether they were negative and how negative. And one of the variables he looked at was parent and family engagement. And he found that that has a pretty high effect size on student achievement. And so what the curriculum department did was leveraging some of that research. We decided to create ULearn. We did this in the beginning of this year. And ULearn is specifically for parents and families of our students. It's geared towards you. And there's two parts to ULearn. You can see in the upper right hand, there's a link up there. And that ULearn is essentially what we're doing today. So we typically have about 10 to 12 of these a year, but we have presenters come, whether it's presenters from the district or presenters from outside the district, and speak to our parents and families about a range of topics, including content, like today is about middle school math content. We have other presentations on how to support your students at math at home, how to support them in English language arts, wellness for parents, and these sessions are usually done in English, and then we have an hour-long session in Spanish. It's the same exact session. The bottom part is something that's new this year as well. It's ULearn on Demand, and you'll find that on our ULearn website, which I am going to show you a bit later. But on the ULearn on Demand site, they are short 5-minute or less YouTube videos, and they mostly talk about, you can find out information on like Google Drive, Google Translate, how to access free virtual tutoring for your student, our Atlas curriculum. And so these websites are both very good and very informative and have information up there for you. Should you choose to look at them. Okay, so here's what we'll be talking about today, specifically as it relates to middle school math. We've done some introductions. We are going to talk about the development of math reasoning. We'll talk about our curriculum and how it fits into the development of math reasoning in Atlas, which is where the platform we write our curriculum on. We'll talk about parent and family access to our program, which is our core program is called Big Ideas. We'll talk about the courses that we offer at the middle school level, the honors courses we offer at the middle school level, and the course progression. And then we'll finish this session today with support for families and students. And so it's how is you as families and parents, how can you help your students? Okay, so that's kind of what we'll talk about today. Okay, so this is one of my favorite images ever. If I could frame this and put it in my living room, I would probably have to remove my kids' pictures, but I would do that. Well, I wouldn't remove my kids' pictures, but I would probably squeeze it in. What this does is it essentially shows you everything that students learn in pre-K through 12th grade in mathematics in one image. It's really that nice. And I want to unpack it with you for a bit because it'll help you understand what kids learn and the trajectory of what they learn from pre-K to 12th grade, anywhere you live in New Jersey or in the United States. This is basically what we're learning as a nation in mathematics. In pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade, typically what happens is we focus on counting strategies. And counting strategies are when students count by ones. So you might see kids using their fingers a lot, right? It's perfect. Kids count on their fingers by ones, and they usually do this in pre-K, kindergarten, even before pre-K. This is kind of their introduction into strategies in mathematics. So for example, if you give a kid a problem 3 plus 3, when they're using counting strategies, typically what they do is they use their fingers and they say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that's how they get the answer that way. Some kids get a bit more sophisticated in their thinking, and they hold that first 3 in their minds, and then they just count on. So 3 plus 3 is 3, 4, 5, 6. That's still a counting strategy. So if you see your students using their fingers and counting by ones, they're using counting strategies, right? Even if they're solving problems like 27 plus 8, 27 minus 8, you can still use counting strategies to solve that if you're counting by ones. And what tends to happen is we begin to realize, and students begin to realize that, wait a minute, this really isn't too efficient, especially if I'm looking at larger numbers, right? So around first grade, second grade, what we tend to do in our classes is we begin to nudge kids towards something called additive thinking. And what additive thinking is you're not necessarily counting by ones anymore. You're looking at bigger chunks or bigger amounts than one at a time. So for example, if I had 27 plus 8, I'm not using my fingers to count by ones anymore. The way I might think about this is I might say, 27 plus 8, I don't really know what that is, but I know what 27 plus 3 is. That gets me to 30. So I could do 27 plus 3, which is 30, plus 5 is 35. And that's thinking of it not by ones anymore, but in larger chunks or larger amounts. And that's an additive strategy or additive thinking. In the second problem there, you can see 27 plus 49. I don't really know what that is offhand, but I know what 27 plus 50 is, right? 27 plus 50 is 77. And I can just take one away because I know I added one. So I can get to 76. So that becomes more efficient than counting by ones. And sometimes it even becomes more efficient than our standard algorithm when I have to line them up and carry numbers over. If I can think of it as 27 plus 50, then I can strategize how to get that. So that's an example of additive thinking. And again, we begin to nudge kids towards this kind of thinking, usually in grades 2, 3, and 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's really the focus of what we're doing there. And then around grades 3, 4, 5, 6, we begin to introduce multiplicative thinking. And in multiplicative thinking, what you're doing there is you're using bigger chunks than one group at a time. So in the previous additive thinking, we were doing 27 plus 8. It's one group of 8 that we're adding onto it. But what happens if we're adding more than one group at a time, right? That's where we need to begin to think about multiplicative thinking. And multiplicative thinking goes beyond just our standard algorithm, right? That's important to know, and we have to make sure we teach that, but we also have to make sure we understand what that standard algorithm is. And this visual below is a beautiful representation of what the understanding of that standard algorithm. It's called partial products, right? I remember when I was younger, I would just I was told to put red hot zeros and line things up, but I never really understood what the red hot zero meant. Well, I can see it right there in the 120, right? There's the red hot zero, but it's making sense in this visual that I have. So when I think of 3 times 45, I don't really know what that is offhand, but I might think of that as 3 times 40, which is 120, and then 3 times 5, 115. So I know 3 times 45 is 135. And that's basically what our standard algorithm has us doing. That's the thinking behind that. And that's multiplicative thinking. And you can use multiplicative thinking with division as well. We just call it multiplicative thinking. Okay? And again, this tends to happen, this thinking begins to happen usually around 3, 4, 5, and 6. But then at the middle school level, what we begin to is we build on the additive thinking and multiplicative thinking, and we introduce students to proportional reasoning. And what proportional reasoning is, and you know, if you have a son or daughter in middle school, you might have been seeing this. It's looking at two quantities and scaling them up or down in tandem. And so if you look at that ratio table, if I have $1 and I know it's 4 quarters, well, how many quarters is $4.50, right? And I can scale up or down using multiplicative and additive thinking to figure out that it's 18 quarters is $4.50. Okay, and you tend to see proportional reasoning or proportional thinking. It's usually introduced, I would say, around 6th grade, and we focus on this in 6th, 7th, and some of 8th grade. So this is the kind of thinking that emerges at that age or that grade level. And then you remember it at the high school grade level, and we really introduced functional reasoning in 8th grade. But if you remember from your high school days of functions, that's what happens at the high school level, or from algebra, pre-algebra up. We begin to focus on functions. And what functions are is, believe it or not, it's all of those things we were just talking about. It's proportional reasoning, but graphing it. So you see this table to the left, there's all those proportions, right, in there, and then we're just graphing them on a coordinate plane. So you can have linear functions, exponential functions, quadratic functions, and you know, before you know it, you're up and off to calculus. But this tends to happen at the high school level, where we're building upon some of those previous thinking and reasoning to get to here. And I want to go back to this diagram again, so you can see from counting strategies all the way up to functional reasoning on the right-hand side. This is essentially what happens throughout a student's pre-K through 12th grade trajectory in math. The other piece I want to highlight is these words in white down here. In addition to what I just talked about, we know that students learn geometry, spatial reasoning, and geometry throughout their K through 12, or really pre-K through 12 career as well. They're learning 2D shapes, 3D shapes. At the high school level, they're learning proofs in geometry class, but geometry spans from elementary all the way to 12th grade. So does algebra, believe it or not. Algebraic reasoning is not just something you encounter in an algebra class. In kindergarten, when you're looking at patterns, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, red, red, blue, red, red, blue, those are the beginnings of algebraic reasoning, right? All the way in kindergarten. And then statistical reasoning, you begin to see that starting in kindergarten all the way up through 12th grade. And I would say, oh, Lauren, they can't see the presentation? Oh, that's weird. Let me stop sharing. How about now, Laura? You can see it? Okay. Thanks for letting me know. And statistical reasoning, What tends to happen in statistical reasoning is calculus has always been seen as the pinnacle of high school math, right? It's the last course you can take. It's the pinnacle there. But statistical reasoning has become more ubiquitous in our country, really in the world, with big data, data literacy, and I've seen other states, high schools in other states creating paths at their high school level, focusing on statistics and data literacy at the high school level. And so I have a feeling that over the next, few years, statistics really is going to be, there's going to be more of a push there than there currently is, and there is a big one. Okay, so let's move on. Lauren, I just want to make sure. Can everyone see this? You can see it? Okay. Okay, so let's talk about union. So now that you have an idea of mathematics and the trajectory of mathematics and what tends to happen, let's look specifically at sixth grade. This is our sixth grade curriculum. So I copy and pasted the pacing guide from our sixth grade curriculum and put it up here. Later in the presentation, I'm going to show you where to access this on our district website. So it's on our district website, so you can find this there. But on the left-hand side, you can see all of the units that we focus on in sixth grade in Burnett and Kwame. So you can look at those units and say, okay, fractions and decimals, there's still a bit of multiplicative thinking there, right? Then I begin to see the beginning of proportional reasoning, rates and ratios, percents. I can see equations, some algebraic thinking, and you can see data and statistics, right? Even geometry on the bottom, last one, with area, surface area, and volume. So those kinds of thinking are, what we're covering in sixth grade. And I also put on the side, we're going to talk about this a bit, but I wanted to make sure I showed you, our program, our core program that we use in sixth grade is something called Big Ideas. Okay, and that's essentially what the book looks like. You have online access to this. All parents and families have online access to this. And if you don't know how to access it, I'm going to show you that today. Okay. In seventh grade, here's what students learn in seventh grade, and here's our curriculum. So again, you can see on the left-hand side, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. We're looking at rational numbers. I can see algebraic thinking there. There's expressions, equations. I could see geometry, shapes, angles, surface area, volume. I could see proportional reasoning, and then statistics at the end. So all of that thinking we were talking about in the beginning finds its way into our sixth and seventh grade curriculum. We also have at the seventh grade level, and for some of you who are fifth grade parents, I'll talk about this in a bit, we have where we begin our honors courses at the seventh grade level. And we currently have an accelerated and an honors class. And in this particular class in seventh grade, you can see we're learning multiple years of math in 1 year. So we do have this is a pretty packed course in that we're learning multiple standards from different grade levels in 1 year. Okay, so we'll move on to grade 8. In grade 8, what you tend to see in grade 8 is it's more of a pre-algebra class. It's called grade 8 math, but typically at this level, most grade 8 districts offer pre-algebra, right? And it's the course you take before you take algebra the following year. So in this class, again, you see the beginnings now of functions, okay? You can even see there's a whole unit dedicated to that functional thinking. So there's still, though, geometry, statistics, there's proportional reasoning in this, but now there's the beginning of this introduction of functions and algebraic thinking. We also in 8th grade in Union offer an algebra class. When I was younger, algebra was always a 9th grade class, but around the 90s, there was this Algebra for All push. It started in California, actually, and algebra at that time in California, they began offering it in 8th grade. And this idea became ubiquitous in the country that we began offering algebra in 8th grade around that time. And so many districts, including Union, still offer algebra in 8th grade. Ironically, there's been just over the past few years, California's done a bit of an about-face on this. And in their new math framework that they were developing out there, the proposal was to move algebra back, believe it or not, to high school. However, they still do offer Algebra 1 in 8th grade in California, but that was one of the proposals there. So we offer it here. We offer it in 8th grade. And here is the what students are learning at that level, okay? And again, I'm going to show you where to access all of this on our district website. So this page shows you how to access our Big Ideas program. We use Big Ideas as the core program at our middle school level. And in the upper left-hand corner, there is the login. And again, this is all going to be made public to you on our ULearn website. So, I mean, you're more than welcome to take pictures of it now, or you can wait till it's up there. But if you type this in, bigideasmath.com /BIM/login, you'll get to this screen, okay? And in the pink on the bottom, I'm circling it, all you have to do as a parent or a family member, everyone has access to this, is you just have to click the grade that your student is in, the state, and then you click easy access to book. When you do that, you'll have a choice of 6th, 7th, 8th, Algebra 1, and you'll be able to click on the book and it will give you the entire book online. So as a parent, as a family member, you have access to this, and this is how you access that. Okay, it's just typing in this website up here. And again, clicking on the grade, the state, and then clicking that tab, and that will bring you access right to the book. So if students have homework in the book, you know, you can actually access it as well if you want to help them at home, okay? Okay, so like I mentioned before, I know some of you here are rising 6th grade parents, meaning you currently have students in 5th grade who will be going to 6th grade next year. At the middle school, whether you're in mathematics, science, social studies, or language arts, it's the first time that we begin to offer honors courses to our students. Honors courses begin in the district in 7th grade. So no matter what subject you're taking, students do have access to take honors classes in 7th grade, and they'll have that access all the way up through their senior year in high school, okay? And the way our honors criteria works, and I'll show you this on our district website, but what I tried to do here was to provide a real concise summary of it, is there are 3 categories to criteria for our honors and AP classes, okay? And category 1 looks at a student's quantitative data. Quantitative means numbers. So for example, it looks at a student's final course grade, okay? And a student needs, according to this criteria, a B or better in a class in order to be considered for an honors or an AP class the following year, okay? In math, also next year, we'll be looking at diagnostic data, which I'll talk about in a bit. If a student doesn't necessarily meet some of that criteria, and they still want to take an honors class, what happens is then we look at category 2. And category 2 includes, I put qualitative data. Qualitative data is any data that doesn't have numbers in it. So what we look at here is a teacher recommendation, okay? So a teacher recommendation is all teachers have access on Genesis to recommend a student into a class for next year. So even if a student does not necessarily meet some of the criteria for category 1, if a teacher recommends you to a specific class, an honors class, you have access, you can join that class, okay? If category 1 and category 2 are not met, what tends to happen at that point is we ask students to fill out a waitlist form. And the waitlist form alerts the supervisor of the department that this particular student would like to be in an honors or an AP class the following year. And then the supervisor begins to look at data on the student. They might reach out to the student. They may reach out to the parent or family. They may speak to the counselor. They may speak to the teacher. They look at, the final course grade. And then the supervisor then makes a decision at that point. Because you also have to remember, scheduling for the following year's classes is already happening. It started happening probably in early March. And so final course grades are not done until June, right? So we start scheduling now because we have thousands of students that have to be scheduled into classes next year. So sometimes, we won't know until the end of the year when we have more of this data whether or not criteria is met. And I've seen some counselors ask students to fill out a wait list, just in case. And I think that's a good idea, that, it doesn't hurt to add a wait list. Sometimes we don't even need the wait list for a student, but sometimes at least it puts it on the radar of the supervisor to double check at the end of the year. And oftentimes a kid or a student is on a wait list and they've already met the criteria that they can be in the class. Okay. So next year in middle school math, here's our course progression. So you can see in 6th grade, we do have 6th grade. In 7th grade, we have an honors 7th grade class. And that honors 7th grade class, just to make note, is standards from 7th and 8th grade. Okay, so that's what that honors 7th grade class entails. And then one of the beauties in our 8th grade, we have 3 classes in our 8th grade. We have a grade 8 math, which is pre-algebra, which we talked about. We have an honors grade 8 math, and we also offer algebra, honors algebra. One of the beauties here is that no matter what 7th grade class you're in, you have access to all 3 of those courses in 8th grade. Okay, so whether you're in grade 7 or in honors grade 7, all students have access to all of those courses, granted they meet the criteria to be in there. And I'm going to minimize my screen for a second. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. I'm going to reshare. Lauren, let me know if you're able to see. Oh, there we go. Lauren, are you able to see the district website?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to take a few minutes. I am going to continue to talk about math and the honors and AP. I'm going to pull that up for you. But what I wanted to show you before I get there is here's our district website. And if you scroll down on the main site, you can see here's our ULearn tag. So if you click ULearn, this will bring you to our ULearn website. Okay. This is where we plan to put this video up on this website. But you can see here's our ULearn on demands, which you'll find all of the short videos I was telling you about. And then if you continue to scroll down, you'll be able to see some of the past and upcoming ULearn presentations, which I mentioned before are in English. And then we also have those in Spanish. Okay. So that's ULearn. But what I want to do is come up here to the top. And you can see along the top of the screen, there are these tabs. If you hover over departments and services and you scroll down to our curriculum instruction and assessment tab, Here, what you'll find are our curriculum guides. So if you click on this, you'll get access to all of the curriculum in the district from kindergarten all the way up to 12th grade, including those guides that I showed you before, okay? So that's that. But what I wanted to show you was this honors and AP placement. So if I click on that, this screen will come up. Lauren, are you able to see this? I just want to make sure. Okay. So this is our honors and AP placement procedures. This is for the entire district. And I provided a real short summary slide of that. But here is, you can see the categories on the side. You can see what the students need in the procedures, right? And so I'm just going to scroll up and down. You can see the wait lists are down here and what the wait list is, etc. But this shows you for the entire district and all courses, this is the criteria that you would need to meet to be in an honors or an AP course, okay? At the top of this page, there's a link here specifically to middle school math. And I'm just going to open that link for you, okay? So if you open that link, here's what you'll find. You'll find the middle school course progression. And then underneath it, there are a short summary of what you'll learn in each class. So when you're talking to your students at home about what they'll learn in math or whether or not they might be interested in taking an honors math class, here's just a summary of what students would learn in that particular class. And obviously, if you wanted more information on any of those courses, you could reach out to either Ms. Whitford or myself, and we can provide that for you. Okay, so here's a summary of all of the classes. And then underneath it, we have some of the placement criteria. Now remember, this is category 1, right? This is that quantitative data that we were talking about. And so I'm just going to go through some of this with you, just so you can get an idea of what this means. So a 6th grade student who may want to take an honors grade 7 class, they have to meet the honors criteria, which is a B or better at the end of the year, and they have to score on or above grade level in our diagnostic. So we take an IXL diagnostic, and we're looking this year at the winter and the spring diagnostics. The spring diagnostics are coming up next month. And so students will take that spring diagnostic, and we're looking for students to score on grade level on that diagnostic or above grade level on that diagnostic, okay? And you can see as you scroll through that if a student is in this grade, here's the criteria that must be met to be placed in honors grade 8, okay? If a student is in 7th grade or the honors 7th accelerated, to be placed in the honors algebra class, here's the criteria that must be met. And essentially what it is getting a B or better, which is the honors criteria, and it's looking at IXL diagnostic scores. This year, again, it's in the winter. We look at it now because that's what we have available to us. But we also, again, are going to look at it this spring, right, because it's based upon the end of the year this year. And what we do for our honors algebra as well is if they don't meet those, we also give students the opportunity to take an algebra readiness placement, and that will be coming up in April as well. So some students will be taking that to be in the honors algebra class. Now remember, this is all category 1. If a student doesn't necessarily meet this criteria, what we would do then is we'd go to category 2. And if a teacher recommends them to one of these classes, they would be in that particular class, okay? If that doesn't happen, right, let's say they don't necessarily meet the criteria here, the teacher didn't recommend them for a certain class, what we would do then is we would look at that wait list form, that's category 3, and then it would go to the supervisor who would, again, who would look at quantitative and qualitative data and then make a decision based on that student. And, the way my thinking about this is that we want to make sure that every single student is in a class that's challenging for them. As Lev Vygotsky would say, is in their zone of proximal development. We also want to make sure that, we're all not saying that a student should go to AP Calculus when we're seeing based on the data that they're having some troubles with algebra and pre-algebra. Maybe the next best class is Algebra 2, and then that AP Calculus class, the following year. So, and that's something that we talk about, in Category 3 is we look at all of the data on a student and we talk with the parent and think about the best place for the student the following year. So I'm going to go back to this presentation. Lauren, are you able to see this? Okay. We're almost done. A couple last slides. One of the beauties that we offer in Union is we have something called Pear Deck Tutor. Students, it's free. Every student has access to this. All students have to do is log in through Clever. And, oh, Lauren, can you see? No? Yes? Okay, thanks. So all students have access to Pear Deck Tutor. And basically what Pear Deck Tutor is it provides a student a live tutor, an actual person. Students can access this through Clever, and there's a Pear Deck tutoring app that they would just click on, and they can access this not just for math, but it could be really for anything, which is really wonderful. And they can access this at any point. It could be after school, it could be after dinner, it could be at night. They could do it during the day, before school. I think my parents probably wish that I had access to something like this as a student, because at some point, unless you're a math major, and students move on to classes like Algebra 2, Pre-Calculus, Calculus, AP Statistics, sometimes the math becomes a bit difficult for a parent or family member to help. And so this is a wonderful place for any student, whether it's the middle school, high school, or elementary, to get a live tutor for free that can help them with what they need. Additionally, at Kiwami, we have 2 in-person places where students can get help. It's called academic support. One place is a Homework Alliance Club. And the Homework Alliance Club is on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursdays. After school, you can see the hours are there. On Tuesdays, it's before school, and you can see the teachers that run it. And that's where students go to get help with homework. We also have at Kiwami a peer tutoring, and the National Junior Honor Society takes part in that. And that's on Tuesday and Thursday mornings in room 206. Okay, so that's support we have for students in addition to Pear Deck tutoring, which they can access online. But this you'll actually get one of our teachers or Junior Honor Society students who can help as well. At Burnett, if you're in Burnett, we also have a Homework Alliance Club, and that's on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays after school. It's about 40 minutes after school, and we have the rooms right here. We have different teachers in there who can help out with the homework at that point, okay? And I'm going to leave, I know it's 12:45. Here's my email address. jcohen and then at townshipunionschools.org. I also have Lauren's, Miss Whitford's email address, lwhitford@townshipunionschools.org. If you have, specific questions about your son or daughter, specific questions about your son or daughter and what we talked about today, we are more than happy to help, or to point you in the direction of someone who might be better able to help than us, perhaps the school counselor, the student's teacher, etc. And again, I'm going to stop sharing for a second. This presentation, as well as a video of this presentation, will be made available. Again, we will put this on the district website, the ULearn website, and I'll put the presentation up here for you to look at it. And again, sometimes you might look at the presentation and have questions afterwards, after you digest what's there. If that's the case, you know, you have our email addresses, jcohen@Township Union Schools or Lawrence L. Whitford @Township Union Schools. You can write to both of us. You can write to either one of us. We will certainly get back to you